The very first time you live on your own, you get an apartment. I would say 90% plus of the population moves into an apartment first. There are probably those rare individuals that go either rent a house with other people or are, independently wealthy, and so they just go buy one. Um, but, the majority of the population, when they get their first place, it's an apartment, and you rent it. There are apartments that are owned. Usually those occur in larger urban areas. And what happens is that sometime along the line, they were originally designed to be apartments that were all rented. Somebody bought it out and decided to make them ownable. But they're still apartments. And sometimes in those situations, like half the building will be owned and half of it will be rented. It's kind of, weird. Um, they can range from no bedrooms. 0 bedrooms would be called a studio. And as I said, the max I've heard is like a 5-bedroom apartment. That's not to say there couldn't be bigger ones. And that was, actually, it was LA. Yeah. So I'm not going to say what the maximum number of bedrooms in an apartment is. I have no idea. Yeah. Um, hmm? Oh, a studio is, okay, so a studio apartment is like basically a living room and a bathroom and a kitchen-y area, usually not a full kitchen, but like more like a kitchenette or like a wall that has the kitchen type area. Um, yeah. The thing about a studio apartment is if you're single, they're cheap because you're not paying for very much you're not paying for a lot of space. Um, Usually people living in studios either have no living room and it's just like their bedroom and they have a bed and TV or whatever or they have like a fold out. Um, but like I said, they're very inexpensive and especially if you live alone and you don't want to have people over a lot that need a place to sit down or hang out, they're fine. Um, that the as apartments go, the more space you add, the more expensive it is. Yeah, it's based off the square footage. So the more space you have, the larger the rooms or the more rooms, the more expensive it is. A studio. A studio goes by a couple names. It'll be like a studio, an efficiency, a loft, or well, there no. Some people call studios lofts. Yeah. So it's up to it's. The thing is that different words sound more attractive than others. So depending on who's advertising is what they'll call it. Okay, if you're renting an apartment or anything else, actually, if you're renting an apartment, a house, anything you're renting that you live in, the boat, it doesn't matter if you're renting it, you're the tenant. And the person that owns the living space is the landlord. Now, a landlord can be an individual person, it can be a group of people in partnership, or it can be like a company, a corporation. Um, so, the corporation can be your landlord. Then you have furnished or unfurnished apartments. Now, furnished apartments are more expensive. The furniture's already in there. There's a couch, some chairs, bedroom furniture, bed, dresser, whatever, kitchen table if there's a kitchen that has room for a table. Yes. Um, Now, most apartments come with the appliances, furnished or unfurnished. Some apartments do not come with a refrigerator. So some apartments do require you bring your own refrigerator, but those are pretty rare. Most apartments come with all of the appliances, um, whether they're furnished or not. Now, furnished apartments, I'm not going to say it never includes the linens or the dishes, but I've never heard of one that included like linens or dishes or cookware. Right, that's what I'm saying. That's why I've never heard of one coming with those things. That's not to say it doesn't exist somewhere, but they do include a bed and dressers and couch, chairs, all that kind of stuff. Um, no, If they don't bring, okay, a furnished apartment they would be very much a waste of their money. Too expensive for them to replace the furniture every time a new tenant comes in. Kinda, yeah. Yeah, so the furniture that's in there could have been there for 2 years, it could have been there for 20 years, who knows? Um, yeah, so, but if you have nothing, if you own no furniture, this is like a good way to get started at least. Unfurnished has no furniture at all, it's just rooms, with appliances and, like plumbing or whatever, but there's nothing in it. Um, and then your lease is your written agreement between the landlord and the tenant. It includes the length of like the term that you'll live there under this particular agreement. That's not to say that when the agreement is over, you have to move out. You have a choice at that point to either sign a new agreement or move out. And a lot of times when the term is up and the new agreement will be different than the original agreement. Most of the time that includes an increase in rent. Okay. Um, but the lease will go over the length of the term. Most leases are month to month, 6-month, 9-month, or 12-month. Occasionally you'll get a 2-year lease, but those are pretty rare. Most apartment complexes like to do a 6-month lease because if you're a bad tenant, it's very difficult to evict someone. It's very easy to not renew your lease at the end of the 6 months until you have to move out. That's not an eviction. That's yeah, we're not going to sign with you again, get out. Rules. Yeah. The lease will also discuss the financial aspects. That is a security deposit, if there is one, the monthly rent, if you have to pay first and last month on moving in, pet deposits, any fees for late rent, any fees for damage, things like that, and then also the rules of the whole living there thing, like no, you're not allowed to paint the walls any color at all, ever. No, but that's what I'm saying, it'll be in the lease. So, most apartments, like apartment complexes, they do not want you to paint. They don't allow it. Private owned apartments are usually a little bit more flexible because if you're painting, they have to approve the color usually, but if you're painting, then they don't have to do it. Oh, we don't want to record this yet. We have, when the lease ends, it's known as being an expired lease, and there are 3 options at that point. You can renew the lease, you can move out, or you can roll over to a month-to-month sometimes if they allow it. Okay, so let's say you sign an agreement to live in an apartment for 9 months. When the 9 months is up, that's when you have to make that decision. Now, renewal and rolling over from month to month, both of these options is with the apartment permission. Like you can't just say, well, I'm signing a new lease unless they say you can sign a new lease. You can't just decide, right? They have to agree that they would still like to have you there. And rolling over to a month to month, that also has to be with permission. Some apartments allow it and some apartments don't. And what a month to month lease means is that you're no longer bound by a length of time on a lease. Every first of a month, you can start over. Now, if you're going to move out, you have to give a month's notice. So let's say it's now, April. Let's just say today's April 1st. I know it's not, but we'll say it's April 1st. If I want to move out in May, I have to tell them today and give them 30 days notice because I'm on a month-to-month lease. This is a good option if you know you want to move. Like you're in an apartment and you know you want to move and your lease is coming up, but you haven't found where you want to move to yet. Rolling over to month allows you time to look for someplace else.
Is that more expensive though?
It depends on the apartment. Some of them charge more for that, some of them don't. It just depends. Evicted. This is bad. Being evicted means you have been legally removed from an apartment or rental situation Most evictions occur due to non-payment, but evictions can also occur for very many other reasons, such as damage to the apartment, illegal activities occurring in the apartment. I mean, there's lots of reasons that you can be evicted.
What's that word after upkeep on condominium? Pay.
Pay
Pay
fees
fees.
for
Oh, yeah,
upkeep.
pay fees. Sorry. Here's the thing. If you have an eviction on your record, it's almost impossible to ever rent again. Or let me rephrase that. It's almost impossible to ever rent again any place nice. You can get an apartment, most likely not one you want. Okay?
If you get evicted and like how what do you have to do to get like to be able to yeah, fix it?
Um, okay, single family home is like a house, just like your normal house. Doesn't can be like a 2-bedroom house or a 90-bedroom house. It's a single family home. If it's just a single house. A multifamily home are joint houses, so you're looking at a duplex, a triplex, a fourplex. Um, so a house that's built with like more than one kind of house stuck together. Does that make sense? Okay. Um, these can both be rented as well as purchased. Condominium is similar to an apartment. They're also known as townhouses or townhomes or brownstones. They have all kinds of names also. The residents own the individual units, but not the land. So it's kind of like an apartment that you buy. Usually, though, not arranged in the same way as an apartment building, right? And you have like 2 or 3 floors, and you've got apartment here and here, 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 and here, here. Apartments stacked all over each other. Usually, condos are broken up like this. And so each individual condo will be 2 stories, but you own both of them a lot of times. That's also why they're called townhouses. There are some condos that are broken up like this, but most of them are broken up like this. And then there are single-story condos, like that. Very good art. Yes. Okay. You own the individual unit, not the land. You are responsible for all of the upkeep to your unit, so inside the walls. So any paint, any carpet, any appliances, anything that goes wrong, water heater blows up, you have to fix it. Now, in an apartment that you're renting, the landlord is responsible for all interior upkeep of that nature. Like if the stove quits working, the landlord has to fix it. If the plumbing leaks, the landlord has to fix it. Now, normal wear and tear, like if the walls get dirty because there's smudges all over them, you're responsible for that because that's just like paint and dirt. But if it's something major, then the landlord is responsible for it. In a condo, the owner is responsible for everything inside, and they pay monthly fees to cover the outside maintenance. So the outside of the building being painted or maintained, the landscaping, the parking lot, and all that stuff.
I have an unrelated question.
Uh-huh.
If your car gets towed,
Uh-huh.
can you put that under expenses?
Okay. Sorry.
Instead of, the tire damage or
Um,
this and that?
Now there's a weird situation. It's called a co-op apartment. These are not terribly common in this area. They are more common in more urban, probably areas than around here. Um, a co-op apartment is an apartment complex owned by a corporation, and corporations are owned by shareholders, right? So when you buy shares of stock, you are buying ownership in the corporation. Well, the co-op is a corporation-owned apartment complex where the shareholders live in the apartments. So it's kind of like you own a condo, but instead of buying a condo with money, you buy a condo with shares of stock. So you buy shares of stock in the corporation. It has to be enough shares of stock, of course. Like if you go buy one, they're not going to give you an apartment. It has to be enough shares of stock. And then you earn the right to live in one of the apartments. And if you want to move, you sell your shares of stock to someone else, and then they live in the apartment. It's an unusual situation. Now, just like a condo, if you live in a co-op and you own it because of your shares of stock, you are responsible for all of the interior maintenance, and you pay fees for the exterior. It's the same thing as a condo, really. The difference is instead of like a condo, you go get a mortgage or you pay for it outright. With a co-op, you buy shares of stock, and then you get to live in it. You don't technically you own it because you own shares of stock, so you own the corporation, and the corporation owns the apartment. But you don't own it like you have a deed.
At first, the direction I thought you were
Reporting
taking was
rent.
towards the dust.
Rent, guys.
Dust and like eating them.
Guys.
Come on, it's good.
Should be 20 to 30%.
Rent should be 20 to 30% of your gross income, not your net. So not your take-home pay, but your overall earnings. Any more than this, and you might not be approved by the apartment complex to begin with, and it's difficult to afford after that.
I don't want to sound stupid right now. Like,
Mhm.
can you explain the difference between net and gross again? Like, I
Yeah. Net gross is your
Is that
earnings.
after or?
No, this is before taxes.
Okay, so gross is before and then net is after?
Yeah.
Got you.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I just always got confused.
Net is your take-home pay.
Okay.
So your actual paycheck that you like the amount of money you actually get if you cash your check, and your gross is what you earned before all the taxes, before they take out, insurance or any of that stuff. Okay, so it should be 20 to 30% of your gross. All right, so let's say we have Alex and he makes $61,992 per year,
How much? What percent do we want to take out?
and he wants to find an apartment. We're going to estimate how much he can afford for rent each month, and then how much he'll have after taxes and rent are paid. Okay, so first we're going to take the 61,992 and we're going to divide it by 12 to get us his monthly income, because obviously his monthly income is not $60,000. How nice would that be? Okay, so his monthly gross is 5,166. Okay, now he's going to pay about 25% of that in taxes, which means he's going to pay $1,291.50 in taxes. Now his rent, we want to be between 20 and 30%. Okay, so on the low side, we'll do the 20%, and on the high side, we'll do the 30%. Okay?
Wait, low rent and high rent. What are we doing this for?
What do the taxes have to do?
We want to determine how much money he has after both. Yeah.
Oh, so we're doing it with 25 and then.
We're going to do 20% and 30% to get a range,
Oh, okay.
so that we can say like the least amount of rent he'd probably want to pay is
Don't you have to subtract the taxes from first?
So if he's gonna be right in the hood,
subtract. We don't have to subtract the taxes first because the rent range is based off his gross pay,
Oh,
not his net pay. And then his maximum that he should be paying is going to be $1,549.
Hell no. Oh my gosh.
that's not bad.
Okay. Now we're
Like
gonna
a four-bedroom, like a really nice
Right?
three-bedroom.
we're gonna go ahead and figure out how much money he'll have left if he does the maximum. Okay, so we're gonna use the maximum.
You better work at home if he's like paying that much money.
1,500.
Just sleep there. It's like a 4-bedroom house.
Yeah. That you might as well just rent a house if you're gonna get that.
Might as well just
save
mortgage the
money
house.
and buy a house later. Save money and buy a house later in a year.
You know, sometimes I can't understand what you say.
I'm sorry.
Okay, if he gets the most expensive apartment in his range, he'll have $2,324.70 left.
And that's not including his bills.
Yeah, this is for bills and everything else.
Water, cable, monthly gas.
Now, that's if he's getting the maximum. You could see if he went with the minimum, he'd have an extra $500 a month to play with. And because they say it should be between 20 and 30%, this is a maximum. If you can find rent that's like 10% of your income, go for it. You don't have to spend 20%.
Yeah, but what if it's limited though?
Well, okay, so when you're looking at an apartment ad in the classifieds, Craigslist, wherever, these are some common abbreviations just so you know what they mean. BA or BTH is bathroom, BR is bedroom. This means it has a dishwasher. Dining room, a doorman.
Yeah, that's pretty kind of like a
Standard.
common sense.
Your doorman will cost you money. If you get an apartment complex with a doorman, you have to tip them and you have to give them Christmas bonuses. Okay?
That's ridiculous. Why
Eat-in kitchen. Eat-in kitchen means you don't have a dining room, but you do have room for a small table usually.
Any anti-full shopping bags? You're gonna need someone to open that door.
Elevator in the building, that's nice. That's really nice, yeah.
That is
Wait,
nice.
When you live on a third-story apartment and there's no elevator and you've got groceries, that stinks.
I
Yeah.
had to help my sister move into her third-story apartment.
No,
Third, her
I've
third,
never.
third story
Oh, how
apartment.
the heck
How
do you
does
do?
it has to be like?
Garage. It may have a garage, like a parking garage, or like if it's a house, it has a garage and it's like two-car garage. If it's a parking garage, there may or may not be an associated fee. So you want to find that out.
Don't you like pay the extra rent for the garage? Like
Sometimes, that's what I'm saying. Sometimes the spot in the garage is included in your rent, and sometimes you have to pay extra. So you want to find that out ahead of time. Hardwood floors, really nice if you have kids. Really not nice if you have a dog.
But you know what? Like the I.
scratches and cold.
Let's see if it works. Okay, heated. Heat is included in rent. This doesn't really happen in Florida very often. But if you're in a northern, like New York, Michigan, Maine, up there where it gets cold, the buildings will have a boiler room. And the boiler room is what heats the whole building. So the heat will be, you don't have to pay like electric bill or whatever to heat your apartment or for gas. Um,
Here you really don't need to heat.
right. Here, same thing, heat and hot water through a boiler room. Mint means it's in good condition, renovated. Room, studio, spacious. So a lot of times you'll see those two things together, spacious, studio. That just means it's a bigger single room than others. Walk-in closet, washer and dryer. This means that there's an actual washer and dryer in the apartment. This means that there's washer and dryer attachments. You have to bring your own. And sometimes you want to check, you can have a regular full-size washer and dryer, but sometimes this hookup thing is for one of those stackable apartment ones. So you'd want to check before it moved. So in case you had full size, you don't try to put them in there. Okay. Lease signing costs, application deposit. This is your background check pretty much. Basically, it's the fee you're paying for them to look things over. Sorry about this control shift thing, it won't go over.
Lease signing codes up there.
Yeah, this is lease signing costs. This is like it should have been underlined. Yeah. Okay, the security deposit. This is money that you pay in case of future damage. So basically, and regular wear and tear. The security deposit will cover if you don't clean the apartment well, if the paint needs to be repainted, if the carpet needs to be replaced, if you break the mirror in the bathroom, things like that. A lot of times
If you're getting evicted,
you won't get that back. You won't get that back if you're being evicted.
I know.
Okay, last month's rent, some apartment complexes make you pay the last month's rent ahead of time, so this is the last month of the lease.
So isn't that included down payment?
Sometimes. Sometimes you pay the first month and the security deposit. Sometimes you pay the first month and the last month, and sometimes you pay all three, first, last, and security.
That's what we like to do.
But this is nice because it's prepaid, right? So this is prepaid month. So when you are moving out,
I mean, it's nice, but you also have to come up with the money.
you don't have to pay for that last month lease, which is nice because then if you're going to move at the end of your term of your lease with these people, you have that last month that you don't have to pay rent that will help you to pay to move. So